everyone, and welcome to the live Q&A show here on Optimus Fantasy Football. I'm looking to read the date, and you know what? I downloaded the wrong background. Today is November 1st. It is week 9 of NFL action. I am joined tonight by the one and only C.H. Herms, and you know him as the godfather of fantasy football analysis. I know him as Bob Harris, Mr. Football Diehard. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight? And more importantly, start with you, Herms. How are your teams looking heading into week 9?
It depends on the league. I've got a handful that are still competitive, but there are certain teams of mine that I probably should have given up on a while ago. But, you still keep trying. It doesn't matter how bad your record gets. It's the integrity of the league. Always try to be competitive.
Well, yeah. Bob, are your teams competing?
Mostly. My Scott Fishbowl team is not competing. It never does. Just like the battle is, it's always a miserable slog for me. Very happy to take part in the charitable aspects of this. Not as happy in the combat, and it's weird because I usually do good in off scoring systems, like in the fantasy cares eliminators. I always rock every year. I mean, I make it to the very end in the ever shifting quicksands of scoring systems and weird lineups and stuff. And I would think I would do well, Scott Fishbowl, but no, I'm punished annually. So there, but everywhere else I'm fine.
This is the first year I've been in playoff contention in Scott Fishbowl, and this is the first year Jen isn't in playoff contention in Scott Fishbowl. It's pretty crazy, but that's a tournament. If you've never heard of it, guys, and you're watching or listening to this, go check out Scott Fishbowl. Very charitable tournament. It's for the kids, and it's just an absolute blast. All positive scoring the last 2 years.
Yep.
Speaking of positives, Jason Williams is in the chat here. He dropped this question about a half hour before we started the show, so I want to get to it here for him. He needs to add a kicker, guys. Should he drop Rico Dowdle or Deontay Johnson? His running backs currently: Alvin Kamara, Bucky Irving, Breece Hall, Tyrone Tracy, Tank Bigsby, and then, of course, Rico Dowdle. This is a half PPR league. Bob, who are you dropping?
He's got the bandwidth to drop Dowdle. I mean, he has the depth to do it. I don't know. I don't see his list of wide receivers. He might have the depth to do Deontay Johnson, too, given the landing spot. I mean, maybe Deontay Johnson cuts a little bit into Zay Flowers. Maybe he cuts a little bit into Rashad Bateman. Flowers is 10th in the league with 61 targets. I think after that, you're looking at Bateman's getting 4 targets a game. There's not a lot of meat on that bone, so I'm not super enthusiastic, but he does have big playability and probably more contingent upside if something happens to somebody in Baltimore than Dowdle has. I'd probably drop Dowdle.
Yeah, I'm with you, Bob. My one thing here in Herms, I want to ask you about this because we did talk about this a little bit on our Wednesday night show with Deontay Johnson. There just isn't much there. And Bob, you alluded to it. Even if you're not super deep at wide receiver, would you still consider dropping Deontay Johnson just because Rico Dowdle is kind of the RB1? And Bob, I agree with you. He's the most droppable here. But is there a world in which you would consider Deontay over Rico?
I'm not entirely sure. And plus, the way that the question was asked, I feel like they kind of know. You know what I mean? They got a feeling as to what they're able to pull off. So, I think that in and of itself kind of answers that question. But I don't know how helpful it was for me to point out the obvious. But, that's just how I'm looking at it.
Sure. No, I'm with both of you guys. I think Rico Dowdle's the one to drop here, and I think, Jason, you knew it. Now we're going to move on to Tyler Sperry here. He wants to know Reed, Coleman, or Tyrone Tracy. Knowing Tyler from this chat, I am pretty sure this is going to be a PPR league, and he's looking for a flex start. Herms, which of these three are you starting this week?
So forgive me, I have not looked into the whole injury report stuff yet, but
Cleared.
I'm assuming, so Jaden Reed, Jordan Love. Okay.
Love is still questionable, but Tracy is cleared.
Okay,
yes.
So that does clear up quite a bit. So in that scenario, I'm going to go with Tyrone Tracy. The amount of work that he's been getting in that backfield over Devin Singletary of late is kind of telling that this team is very trustworthy of him. And no offense to Malik Willis, but when you're missing a guy like Jordan Love at quarterback, things are going to be just a little bit worse in your passing game.
I'll just note that Mason Rudolph, the great Mason Rudolph, and the previously unable to do a damn thing, Calvin Ridley lit up that Detroit secondary. So I'd be a little intrigued, but Tyrone Tracy's the right answer. it was what, 20 carries to 2 over Singletary last week, something ridiculous like that. And plus, he's been doing a lot with it. Tracy has been running back, I think 6 against Seattle and 5 last week. So 2 top 10 finishes out of the last 3 games. I'll take my chances there.
Yeah, I'm with both of you guys. I think Tyron Tracy is the one to go with here. I remember a couple of weeks ago when I was told that as soon as Devin Singletary was healthy, it was Tyron Tracy was going to disappear. Funny how that worked out, right, guys? I know, but I love to see it. He's such a talented back, and I'm glad to see him continue to get the opportunities. We've got Vince Mapstone in the chat. It's his PPR home league. Guys, he wants to know, should he trade Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp for Justin Jefferson and DK Metcalf? His other wide receivers right now are CeeDee Lamb over in Dallas. He's got A.J. Brown in Philly, and then Nico Collins, who is on IR, but slated to come back soon over in Texas. Bob, what do you think?
I will not make any 8-team league jokes, but I would totally do this. I mean, you land Justin Jefferson, you lock down 2 of the top 3 wide receivers in fantasy for sure.
Yeah, Herms, how do you feel about this?
I mean, kind of to borrow a phrase that I've used on the show a handful of times, on a hot summer day, you could offer me a nice, cool, refreshing seltzer or a nice, cool, refreshing cider. Both things are really good, and both things are going to get the job done. Each side of this deal is just incredibly talented players. I think it's something you do. If you want to shake up your roster, do something fun with it, good idea.
Yep. Anytime you can get Justin Jefferson, I'm 100% okay with that. I'm never going to complain. Jason Williams did drop back in here with his wide receivers. They're DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Deontay Johnson, and then McLaurin trade pending here. Does that change your opinion on this question, gentlemen?
No.
I mean, it's a pretty good receiving room. I mean, you could afford to go the other way too. Run me back to those receivers. DJ Moore. When is Deontay Johnson going to start? Assuming he lands McLaurin. I mean, you have more depth at running back, so I'd probably still go that way. But I mean, this is a good group, and we're getting to the point of the season, people. This is where you hit that part where you start shedding depth for quality high-end players because you don't need as much depth because you're heading into the playoffs. And so, you still want to have backups and everything, but you don't need that long bench to carry you through a whole season, because the whole season is mostly played. So you're getting close to that point. We're not there yet, but it's something to start thinking about going ahead. Still more bodies viable bodies at running back than at wide out. I'd probably stick there.
Oh.
Had to mute to cough. Dry Colorado here. To your point, Bob, with Deontay Johnson, if he does get himself ingrained in this offense and something happens to either Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman or Mark Andrews, Deontay Johnson could pick up a lot of volume come fantasy playoff time. So
not a lot. It's the Baltimore Ravens. It's the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, sure.
But what I said, Flowers is 10th in the league in target. So this offense has evolved a little bit to where in past seasons, it was all about the tight ends. This year, it has shifted to a wide out dominant downfield attack, which is great. But I just, listening to the people who cover the Ravens on a daily basis, have spoken with a couple of them. They feel like this is a depth move just to set them up for a playoff run, and that they're happy with the pieces they have. I don't know how Deontay Johnson isn't better than Rashad Bateman, especially after the thudding drop of last week. But again, that Bateman role is 4 targets a game. A couple of things. Deontay Johnson leads the NFL in ESPN's open rate the last 2 seasons. Better than everybody. There's something going on with Deontay Johnson that he's been also traded twice. This goes to the narrative that Pittsburgh finds really good receivers who also happen to be really flaky. And there might be, issues. I'm sure he'll be perfectly happy in Baltimore. It's a good team. Unless he doesn't get enough work, at which point in time he might be less happy. I don't know. So we'll see how it plays out. But again, the contingent upside aspect of him is much greater than whatever Rico Dowdle brings to the table, unless the Cowboys suddenly figure out of the clear blue how to run the football.
Well, they're going to suddenly fire Mike McCarthy? Because unless that happens, I think this team is what this... We can only hope. We're going to move on here. We've got JXHE17 in the chat. Half PPR flex. He needs 3. Downs, Shakir, Tillman, Brian Robinson Jr. He also has Mark Andrews and he needs to know if it's Andrews or Taysom Hill. Herms, let's start with you. Who are you picking for that flex slot out of those four?
All right, so flex 3 of them. So I guess it's really more about who do I leave out.
Sure.
And in that situation, that's how I'm choosing to process that. I would probably pick leaving out Cedric Tillman. I think what we've seen in terms of just consistent volume and also the ability to catch every pass that comes his way for Khalil Shakir, a little too good to pass up. Brian Robinson Jr. going up against a really good opportunity against a Giants run defense that kind of allows a lot of production. And Josh Downs with Joe Flacco, baby. Let's do this. Let's do that thing. And as far as your tight end goes, just roll with Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I'm with you on Andrews. Same thing with Tillman. Bob, how do you feel about this?
So Brian Robinson Jr. is questionable. I'm just looking. I got to check the kickoff times because I'm not as up to speed as I need to be. They're an early kickoff, so you'll know if he's active. I'm absolutely not against Cedric Tillman. It's a tougher matchup against the Chargers. I realize that, and I don't have the expectation that we're going to see the wide receiver 3 output that we saw. But I think he's a legit play every week. So I'll go with you guys, but it's probably closer for me between Tillman and Brian Robinson.
Fair. That's very fair. Too. Yep, that's very fair. We've got Dame Overboard in the chat saying, howdy, y'all. Dame, it's good to see ya. And the ever wonderful fantasy cat, Mr. Scampers. Good afternoon, Nate and Herms, with 100% more Bob Harris than usual. That is very true. Now we do have Andrea Stylowski in the chat, guys. She wants to know Brian Robinson Jr., assuming he plays, or Chase Brown in half PPR. Bob, I'm going to start with you.
I love Chase Brown this week. We got Zach Moss doubtful with a neck injury. It's a matchup against the Raiders that everyone's taking advantage of. I might have a slight lean to Chase Brown this week, Andrea. Andrea, by the way, drafts as well as anybody who shows up in any chats I'm in. She has the hardest questions, the toughest lineup calls, because she just nails her drafts. This is a pretty mundane question for her, but for the most part, she pretty much rocks. I feel like it's taken a little bit of a chance, but with the full, I don't see anyone else now cutting into the workload for Chase Brown. I'll take this matchup. They're both great matchups, but just the health issue for Brian Robinson Jr. makes it easier.
Yeah, Bob, I'm with you. I really like Chase Brown. I really don't like Zach Moss. I saw this coming. It took some injuries, of course, to get him a little bit more volume, but now this is Chase Brown's backfield. So it would be Chase Brown for me. Herms, Chase Brown for you as well?
Oh, yeah, for all the reasons. I couldn't have said it any better myself.
Perfect. We have Sam Wise in the chat. Buy and sell you. He's kissing up. He wants to come back on the show. Sam, I promise we'll have you soon. We are a handsome panel, though. I'll take it. I think Bob and I in the beards. I think that's what gets it. Although we're all 3 bearded. Look at us. Let's go cut some
I kind of, sort of. Not really. I try.
It's good looking. We've got JXHE here in the chat with another question. This is a half PPR league. He needs to flex one of these players here. Tyrone Tracy, Xavier Worthy, Romo Dunze, Jackson Smith and Jigba, or Wandale Robinson. Herms, out of these guys, who are you going to flex?
Oh, geez. Tyrone Tracy. I mean, for a lot of the reasons we were talking about before, he's really taken to this backfield as being the undisputed leader, and the just amount of work that he's produced in that time period has been too good to bench. And then looking at the defenses, I'm trying to see who I have ranked the highest. I want to say Baltimore. I think I have Baltimore ranked the highest, so that's probably where I'd go with that.
All right, Bob, how do you feel about this? Are you going with Tracy again, and then are you on board with the Baltimore defense here?
Not even a question on Tracy. I want to pick on quarterbacks. That's my modus operandi, because we don't, whenever we get defense questions, and no offense to defense questions, I understand why they are questions. But I mean, I tend to pick on the quarterback. So I want a unit with good playmaking options going against lousy quarterbacks. I might go Tennessee here.
Okay. I don't hate that. I think for me, it's probably going to be Baltimore, because I think Bo Nix is due for a reckoning here. He's played way too well, and Denver does not have that good a look.
Look, man, I'm not here for Bo Nix slander. Not having it.
I love Bo Nix. There's a comeback down to earth that's about to happen. And I hope it's not this week. I hope it's next week, because that's a matchup that makes more sense.
Defense in the NFL.
I understand, Bob. That's why I'm really worried, because this should be an easy matchup for him. But I'm with you guys on Tyrone Tracy for sure. Let's move on to Jacob Ander here. with no Higgins this week, would you start one of these, Rachaad White, Jordan Addison, or would you go out onto the waiver wire, pick up Xavier Legette? Now, this is a full PPR league. Bob, let's start with you.
So here's the thing about bad offenses. Let's not mince words here. The Carolina offense is bad. There's two teams that scored fewer points this year, the Giants and the Titans. And some of those big point games came not with Bryce Young, who will start a quarterback this week. Now, Adam Thielen, though, is hurt. So, like, what I say about bad offenses is if you're going to mine at bad offenses, just don't dig deep. And so I think it's fair to say Legette's at the service. I would prefer to limit my mining to Chuba Hubbard to stay above earth and go with that. So Jordan Addison has made a little noise. He's rattled his cage a little bit, 3-3. Wants the ball a little more. I don't know that he's going to get it with TJ Hawkinson here. I would probably take my chances with Rachaad White. You know, you throw in the additional goodness. It's a tough matchup, right? Like, I hate people going against the Kansas City matchup, but in an offense where Baker Mayfield is white hot and lacking receiving assets, Rachaad White gives them that. So I'm assuming this is a PPR. Yeah, it is a PPR league. So I go that way.
Okay, Herms, how do you feel about this?
I would go with Rachaad White, and to kind of echo that point about Baker Mayfield having some limited receiving options. Now it's only the 1 week sample, but I was looking at how the backfield duo of Rachaad White and Bucky Irving performed in week 8, and they put together a 28.9% target share, which was plus 11.3% above what they had combined for through the early parts of the season with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans healthy. They are going to have to throw to somebody. Cade Otton was a very obvious beneficiary, but the other one was throwing to both guys out of the backfield. So in that situation, Rachaad White, already kind of having that level of security with his receiving role anyway, is only going to see a slight bump in that area. So, I mean, on that alone, this is a game of volume, and I like volume.
Yeah, and I think Rachaad White does see it. As much as I love Xavier Legette, this is just not a good situation. And we're getting closer to the playoffs. You want to get that higher seed. You want to get the better matchup first week. You need to start playing for points. So Rachaad White's the guy who's going to get you the most points this week, in my opinion. And Xavier Legette's a guy who, I mean, if you have a bench spot, you want to add him, see what happens. Maybe Andy Dalton comes back and then he becomes viable again without Deontay Johnson there. But otherwise, I'd roll with Rachaad White this week. We're going to go to Vince Mapstone, who out of Cedric Tillman, Xavier Legette, or Ricky Pearsall will be crowned the league winner of 2024 off the waiver wire. Bob, we know it's not going to be Xavier Legette. I think for me, if he gets involved in the offense enough, it would be Ricky Pearsall.
It is not. It is Cedric Tillman. He's the alpha in an offense now run by Jameis Winston, who is willing to put the ball up in the air. We've had 2 wide receiver 1 weeks since he's been in the start. He has 43. Let's look at this. 46 fantasy points in his 2 starts compared to 43 total for Amari Cooper in his 5 starts in that role. So I'm going to just go ahead and say, and also, like, I don't know if anyone, like, somebody might have drafted Ricky Pearsall. 0 people drafted Cedric Wilson. I'm just making that up.
That's a fair point.
I don't have the absolute data here. That would probably be a total lie. But my suspicion is, so like either or. The problem for Pearsall is there's going to be a George Kittle. At some point, there may be a Christian McCaffrey, whatever degree we see him. There's going to be a Deebo Samuel. And I'm told Juwan Jennings, I'm told this by the Rams, can have very big weeks and be limiting factors. He's a 3rd receiver at best. Tillman is the wide receiver 1 and has shown that he's capable of handling the role and doing something with it.
So what you're telling me, Bob, is I'm worried too much about maybe the volume being shifted around in this offense. I'm worried about David Njoku especially. I'm worried about weeks where Winston just forgets about Tillman. But as I'm thinking about this and we're talking about this, he's the X, and you're right. Herms yeah. Bob here to help me out. We've got Tron Force on YouTube. He needs to know, guys, he needs to find a tight end for Njoku's bye week. Not a bad problem to have. Doesn't have anyone to drop. Would you trade JSN or D-Hop for Evan Ingram or Andrews? It's PPR. His other wide receivers are Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, and Darnell Mooney. Herms, let's start with you.
Oh, dude, I just want to give a quick shout out to the homie Andrew Cooper on Twitter at Coupe Fiasco. He tweeted this not that long ago. Evan Ingram last year with Christian Kirk in the lineup averaged 7.5 targets per game. Without Christian Kirk in the lineup, that went up to 10.2 targets per game. So, yeah, you're telling me you have an opportunity to trade for a guy that is just going to be that much of a target hog? Absolutely. Do it specifically for Evan Ingram, and whether it's JSN or D. I mean, I guess I'd rather trade D-Hop, but either one of them, you're getting the best player in that deal. So, yeah.
Correct.
Bob? Yep. I knew that's where you're going to go. I could see you shaking your head there. We've got JXE17, guys. He's got a question. He wants us to grade the trade. T. Higgins and Brian Robinson Jr. for James Cook and Tank Dell. Who won this trade, Bob?
The James Cook side won this deal, the Cook and Dell. I mean, so I have concerns about Houston's pass offense because apparently the inability to pass protect is going to be a limiting factor. Nico Collins is going to be back at some point. You wonder if those deep routes are going to be as viable when CJ Stroud's getting his ass kicked on a snappily basis. So, but still, I mean, I don't know what's up with Higgins. I don't know what he's going to play again. Brian Robinson Jr. speed up. I'll take the 2 healthy guys. Thank you.
Yeah, same with me. Herms, do you agree?
Yeah.
All right. Ross Roberts has got a question. With playoffs on the horizon, do you have any tips for roster construction for the playoffs? Preference of a stud in a bad matchup versus a lesser tier in a good matchup. Example, Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Chicago or Jaden Reed versus New Orleans. Bob, I think you've got something to say here.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a minute ago a little bit. As you start dialing in you start moving out your depth and focusing on high-end players. If you can make some trades for starting level talent and burn some of your depth to get it, that's a perfectly suitable thing to do. It's not like you can't empty your bench. You still need a bench, but it doesn't have to be as deep, right? So start looking at your possibilities there, and you have to be diligent in trades. I work on the radio with a guy named Mike Dempsey, who probably spends 6 hours a day combing every league he's in, looking at every single roster, looking for people with needs. And that's the key to this. If you can invest a little effort and time into looking for teams that have weaknesses where you have strengths and vice versa, you can probably come up with some ways to strengthen your roster for down the stretch. And so, I'm always going to lean the best player, play the best player even in tough matchups. And I know this, DK Metcalf and Mike Evans and George Pickens and who else would like me to know not to play anyone against Patrick Surtain too. Yet still I do it. I'm playing my good players and I don't want to outsmart myself and get too cute. If you want to play your hunch, play your hunch. I play my hunches, but don't listen to me if I'm telling you to play my hunch and you don't feel good about it. So I tend to go better players and try to not outsmart myself. But this is fantasy football, and you are allowed to outsmart yourself, and many of us do it on a regular basis.
I do it about 15 times a week, Bob. That's great advice, Ross, and you should definitely take it here. We're going to go on to Tyler O in the chat, one of Fantasy Pro's top ECR rankers pretty much every week here. However, he does have a question. Fant was his starting tight end. He needs a streamer. He wants a deep cut that'll get it done for 1 week only. Herms, who do you got for us?
I don't know if it's a super deep cut because I think people are low key trying to, starting to catch on a little bit. But over the past 3 weeks in the Los Angeles Chargers offense, Will Dissly has seen no fewer than 5 targets per game and has a target share north of 20% because they're also starting to throw the ball a little bit more often out there. It's kind of fun. So, I don't think many people are, I think the sharp people who are in these deep leagues and stuff out there have already probably figured it out. But I think, I don't know his rostership percentage, but I would imagine Dissly is still below 50%. So that to me is going to qualify as my deep cut.
If you give me a chance to fire, you give me a chance to fire the dismissal, I will push that button every week. But also, Zach Ertz, 3 straight games, double-digit fantasy points should not be overlooked because he plays with his quarterback. I have it on good authority. My sources tell me, them being my eyes, that Jaden Daniels is a very good quarterback.
Yeah, I love the Ertz call. All about Will Dissly. Herms, you made my co-host Casey Kasem very happy. She's been pumping him up for about 2-3 weeks as someone who could go off here. And Bob, I like what you pointed out. They're throwing the ball a ton more.
314 yards a game for over the last 2 games for Mr. Justin Herbert.
They've upped their pass play percentage by almost 20% over the last 3 weeks. Allen, Moore, Bo, Caleb, or Baker at quarterback this week. Herms, who you got?
Dude, vibes, just Baker Mayfield. I don't know. Anytime I like count him out or I'm like worried something's going to fall apart, Baker Mayfield just turns out to be that dude. I'm not questioning it anymore. So I'm just going to go with him because that's what the vibes say.
Bob?
I do not like Baker Mayfield's matchup. I do not like his supporting cast. I like both those other guys more than him this week. Might lean Williams going against Arizona slightly over Nix, but Nix has the rushing numbers that keep me afloat. I know that my friend Tank Polvogt's rooting against him, but I'm going to go Bo Nix here.
Bob, it's not that I'm rooting against him. I live in the Mile High City.
Nathaniel
I want Bo
Tank
Nix.
Polvogt.
Nathaniel Tank Polvogt. My middle initial actually really is T, so that works out perfect. I like Bo Nix. I have this. For me, Bo Nix is a gut feeling that this is going to come crashing down for one game only. I would prefer as a fan it's this week because they have Kansas City next week, and we need top flight Bo Nix.
It is a trip across the country. You know, those are those early kickoff games in the East Coast can be issues for players. But I like Williams. I know the football guys' projections this week have Williams ahead of Bo Nix like by 1. These guys are if I'm looking at the projections right now, 11, 12, and 14. Baker Mayfield outside the quarterback 1 range for this week. If it was like I'm with Herms, the vibe is working for me. Baker Mayfield is just a badass, right? He is just like he is him, and love what he's doing. Love that he's putting it together. The toughness he's showing. I just hate this matchup. I pretty much avoid this matchup every week. I've benched Purdy against them. I've benched Dak against them. I mean, like it's almost like just easy to do.
I mean, fair enough. Baker for the vibes, Bo Nix for the points, Caleb for it in the middle. We'll call it that. All right, Mr. Scampers, Tillman and Njoku can both eat. Have to not panic when Jameis is Jameis again. And that's a fair point. I suppose in the back of my head, maybe that's a little worry that Jameis is going to Jameis. But when Jameis is Jameis and he's still throwing touchdowns. So
30 for 30, baby. I'll take it.
Yeah, man, right? Terrell T over there on YouTube, guys. Better flex. Addison, Chestnut, Elijah Moore, Deontay, or Jake Ferguson. This is a half PPR league.
Well, I mean, like if we wake up on, Sunday, or if I'm doing it for listening to me on the pregame show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, as I announced that Tony Pollard is indeed ruled out inactive with the questionable designation with the foot injury, then Chestnut is the clear path to workload against a New England defense that is as generous to the running back position as any in the league. I mean, it's like almost irresistible. So that'd be a big determining factor.
Herms?
I mean, anytime that there's a guy that can immediately walk into just being handed the ball, 15, maybe 20 times, something crazy like that, you just go for it. This is a math game after all.
Yep. He could roll out Demario Douglas, LOL. I'd probably still go Chestnut given the situation. Maybe if Chestnut doesn't get the path to work, I go with Douglas. That still makes me nervous that they're just spreading the ball around. Though Drake may play this week. We'll have to see how that goes. JXHE17. Here's a fun one for us. Can each of you give me your favorite anytime touchdown scorer to complete my 4-leg touchdown parlay? I have King Henry as leg 1. I'm going to give you mine, and Bob, you're going to laugh at me and want to reach across the screen and slap me, but my addition is Bo Nix because I think he thinks he gets a rushing touchdown against Baltimore.
I think that's fine.
All right, Bob, who's yours?
I haven't looked at my props yet. Let me take it. Herms, go ahead.
Go for it, Herms.
Okay, I'm going to go just based off of vibes again, and I'm going to call back to a player we talked about earlier, Josh Downs. There's something about Joe Flacco being in the lineup, and for as good as the Vikings defense is, they are actually very, very generous to opposing slot receivers this year, and Josh Downs runs, I think it's 85.5% of his routes out of the slot. So there's something about it. There's always got to be one little matchup that you can exploit against tough opponents, and I think that one's going to be the one that makes it happen. So go with Josh Downs.
All right, so we got Bo Nix, we got Josh Downs, Bob.
I should have just gone with the easy. Yes, I'm ready. I like go with him every week. It's like if you have to conjure something up at the last second before you've actually gone through all your prop bets. Jalen Hurts is the anytime TD pick every single week.
All right. No, I love that. He definitely is. I have him at QB1 most weeks because of his rushing upside. Oscar O on YouTube, pick one, please, of this pool of players. Brian Thomas Jr., if he plays, or Terry McLaurin, or Josh Downs. This is PPR league. For me, it's going to be Josh Downs because that Minnesota secondary is so bad. Bob, who is it for you?
It is probably Downs for me. I mean, like I could make a McLaurin argument. And like I have him ranked 12. Downs is my wide receiver. What 12? Yeah, and McLaurin's 15. So there you have it. That's my answer.
Herms?
I'm going the exact same way.
Well, that's because we're all smart.
And
Ross
like
Roberts.
Brian Thomas Jr. is fine. You know, most weeks I love playing him, but he's a little beat up, and I don't know if he's going to make it on the field for this one either. But I would still play those other guys ahead of him.
Yep. Ross Roberts, Bob, wants to thank you for the advice. Much appreciated over there. Jamie Parag, friend of the show, Worthy, JSN, or Alexander Madison in full PPR. For me, it's going to be, probably JSN, but I don't like any of the three. Worthy's too streaky for me. Bob, how do you feel?
Like I wish it was a better offense. I mean, you know, Herms said it earlier. This is a volume game. I mean, who's going to get the sure volume here? It's Madison. What's he going to do with it? Well, some weeks it's a little something, other weeks not a damn thing. I'm probably going to lean into that just because I don't know. Well, I guess so. DK Metcalf's ruled out.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes it, you know, that kind of at least gives me something to hang my hat on, my JSN hat on, if I'm looking to hang my hat on that. I'll go ahead and go with you, JSN.
All right, Herms?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to go with JSN as well, just because, like, well, everything Bob said, and also the fact that, like, the Rams secondary is not, like, super great. They're not, like, aggressively horrible, but they're not super great. So it's, you know, fairly easy for them. Yeah, that's where I'm leaning.
Yeah, with JSN, I think there's just more touchdown upside, more likely touchdown upside. That's kind of where I'm leaning with this one, but we're all pretty much in agreement here. Frankie Nunez wants to know, would we start Chestnut if Pollard is out, or would you roll with Javonte Williams in Denver? Herm, start this one off.
Oh, geez. So the complicated thing about doing this is that I have not done my Friday re-rank yet. So I'm not entirely sure how high Chestnut is going to climb, but where do I have Javonte? I didn't have Javonte Williams that high in this matchup to begin with. I mean, the Baltimore run defense is kind of tough. So, like, yeah, you know what? Screw it. Go with Julius Chestnut. Not only do I think it is a safe option based off of the volume that he's going to get, but it sounds like a really fun idea. What a great way to spend your Sunday on the edge of your seat.
Love a target of opportunity. If he is that, as outlined, it's Pollard out. I'm going in that direction. And besides, I mean, we all know Bo Nix is going to dominate that offense so much and be such a league-winning quarterback this week, much to Nate's chagrin, that there will be no bandwidth for Javonte. Okay, I'm exaggerating. I'm just being
I'm with you, though. Julius Chestnut would be the play. If he has that volume and Pollard's out, I love that matchup. Terrell T wants to know here, guys, Tua or Kyler, 6-point rushing touchdown, 4-point passing touchdown. Bob, which way are you going here?
Stop it, Terrell. No, it's going to be Kyler Murray. I'm not playing Tua. So a couple things. Buffalo is one of the toughest defenses in the NFL. I mean, ask Geno Smith from last week, but every week. Also, what did he have? 145 yards and not much else when he was concussed in week 2 against Buffalo. But over the course of time, I think his average against the Buffalo Bills is well below 15 points. It may be down around the 10-point range. I should look at that before I actually say those words. But it's dismal. I actually have this in front of me. Let's bring it up here. Tua's averaged 10.9 fantasy points a game in 8 previous meetings against the Bills. He's exceeded 14 points 3 times. And so there you have it. He's only had multiple passing touchdowns once against the Buffalo Bills. So easy call for me.
Yeah, it's Kyler for me as well. The only parts of Miami I'm really excited about this week are I really like Devon Achane this week in this matchup. And obviously Tyreek Hill every week. Herms, are you with us on Kyler?
100%.
All right, we're going to move on to Oscar O. Who is the new wide receiver one at Carolina? Is it Jalen Coker? Is it Adam Thielen? Their schedule for the playoffs is the best if Dalton is the quarterback. I kind of think it's Xavier Legette. Maybe Jalen Coker has an argument for wide receiver 2. Maybe. I doubt it, though. It's going to be Adam Thielen if he's healthy. Bob?
I concur.
All right. Herms, you concur?
I think it's likeliest to be Thielen whenever he's healthy, but the one I'm rooting for most is the DMV's own Jalen Coker. Always got to support the local boys. So I'm just the vibes on that would be immaculate if he turns out to be good. So that's going to be my non-analysis answer.
All right. Hey, good enough for me. Mr. Scamper's weighing in on the betting. Kyron Williams, anytime touchdown until it doesn't.
He was
hit.
on my list. He's on my list.
Yeah, he's he's somebody I want to throw props on pretty much every week. Froggy Man on YouTube needs us to pick 2. We've got Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones,
now.
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Come on now.
Yeah, Bob.
This is his call, right? Like, sorry, Froggy. This is your deal. I would, for me, it would I don't know how I'm sitting Gibbs. I don't know how I'm sitting Walker. And I would sit. It would be Jones would take a back seat, and I would hate that, but that's what it would be.
Yep. So you probably wouldn't be on board with this then. Would I be able to trade Kenneth Walker and a mid wide receiver for a star wide receiver? Because right now my running backs are mixing Kenneth Walker, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Aaron Jones.
Yes. Why haven't you already done this?
Yeah. Listen to Bob. Get on it.
No.
Big Mac Brad. Thoughts on the Mahomes-Kelsey stack the rest of the season? The owner of both has them sitting on the bench. Herms, I'll let you start off this one.
I believe in the Kelsey half of the stack because it's tight end. But the Mahomes part of it all is still a little bit complicated. I mean, his turnover rate is still a little bit higher than we'd maybe like it to be. He hasn't gone over 20 fantasy points that many times this season. I don't even remember the last time he did that.
Zero times.
Wow.
Last time he did it was week 12 last year.
Well, dang.
Yeah.
Right? So that highlights pretty much everything. Yeah, half the stack, wonderful. Other half,
not so good.
Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback, so 2 things can be true. You can be the best quarterback in the NFL and not be a good fantasy quarterback because Patrick Mahomes proves it on a weekly basis. It's the shift in offense. It's the shift. Now, I'll say this. I would play Patrick Mahomes this week as a quarterback 1 against Tampa Bay. I would take a chance. I think this is his shot to get 20 points. And his numbers, his passing numbers, like Justin Herbert's, have increased the last 2 games. So I think there's a little something there. And by the way, just because he's not a great fantasy quarterback doesn't mean he can't have great fantasy quarterback weeks. It's just the way the offense has shifted over time. He's not 50 touchdown guy anymore. He
doesn't need to be.
Right. He's the Chiefs are a win with defense and let's run the ball offense and we can get it. We can move it a little bit with Kelsey. I do like Kelsey. I'm with Herms. I think the Kelsey side of this is good. I don't know that I expect, I don't know if we'll see the Patrick Mahomes we all envision Patrick Mahomes being from the past. Again, I don't know if we see that guy again for a few years.
But again, from a real football perspective, Bob, you're 100% right. He doesn't have to be that guy. He's not 50 touchdown Patrick Mahomes, and he's not going to be. I've let that stack lie, Brad. I just leave it alone. You don't need it. JNH, JSN, Tyrone Tracy, or Josh Downs this week in full PPR. Bob, I want to know where you sit on this one because we know 2 of these guys we're loving.
Yeah, I'm playing Tracy. I'm going to play the sure volume over the guy. I think Josh Downs is going to be great. Josh Downs is the guy who could be good with either quarterback, right? And I go back to this summer talking to James Boyd from The Athletic, who before Anthony Richardson laid an egg was pretty much of the opinion that Josh Downs could lead this team in receptions with Richardson at quarterback over Michael Pittman. This was in August. And we're all pretty well convinced that he can do quite well with Joe Flacco. We'll see. I mean, Flacco has been phenomenal. over the course of time. I think he'll be a better, he'll better facilitate our needs, better fuel the fantasy fortunes for the pieces we're interested in. But I mean, I just don't know how I get away from the volume or the anticipated volume for Tyrone Tracy, in addition to what he's done with it. And it's not a bad matchup for him either.
Now, Herms, are you in agreement here?
Yeah, I mean, my brain says Tyrone Tracy. My heart says Josh Downs. I think it's going to be fun. But
well, see, I don't have a heart. It makes it really easy for me.
There you go. See, I knew there was some element that I just needed to remove from this. No, I mean, I think they're both pretty similarly ranked relative to their own position groups. So, at that point, the volume is the tiebreaker, and you go with the running back there.
Yeah, I love all the Tyrone Tracy love here, guys. This has been wonderful. JXHE17, he got offered Jordan Mason for Travis Etienne. With CMC returning, should I take the deal and wait and see if Etienne is traded? Herms, how do you feel about this?
You're trading an irritating mystery box for a differently irritating mystery box. I mean, like, I think it's maybe a little bit aggressive to oversimplify it that way, but it's kind of how I look at it. And it really is just a matter of which one you feel better about. So I guess if ETN gives you better vibes, then like, fine. But I don't know. It's a terrible answer, but I don't know.
I don't really know either. I don't know that I would. You know what? I would. You know why I would? Because I don't believe that Christian McCaffrey has an Achilles tendon anymore. I think they were secretly surgically removed in Germany, and he's never going to play football again. But Vegas is no, I'm kidding. But for real, I know they're talking about bringing him back. They opened the practice window. He's been on the field apparently this week, or I believe he has.
Let me fix it. They are opening the practice window Monday. Okay. He's been on the field this week though, because it's not real practices, right? It's bye-week practices. So he's been on the field. He's been working out. They seem really optimistic. I think none of us believe a damn thing we've heard about Christian McCaffrey because we all got okey dokes week one, and by week one, I mean throughout the entire month of August. Actually, since late last season when he actually got hurt and he never got better, and they kept telling us he was better when he was not better at all. And I can I can say this without giving anything away. Talking to people inside the building, I was getting the same story on McCaffrey that he was fine. People who knew for sure whether he was fine or not. I think the 49ers thought he was going to be fine. You talk to every beat writer there. The only guy out there who was on this was Grant Cohen. And Grant Cohen's on everything because he's a little bit of a pot stirrer, right? And he looks at things a little contrarian. And to his credit, he was calling this out all along, saying there's something not right here. So I think we're all a little bit skeptical of McCaffrey because of that. I don't know if we should be or not. I think probably Herms just set this up perfectly. It's two total unknowns, right? You're swapping one unknown for another. If there's one you feel better with, go ahead and do it. I don't think there's a wrong answer here.
Yep. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think for me, I think Mason has more of a path to volume sooner rather than later, but we don't know.
There's a universe in which Christian McCaffrey, so maybe watch you need to make the decision right now. You're not going to know. I mean, the NFC West is not exactly nobody's running away with this, right? It's still viable. And so you wonder if the 49ers aren't interested in not overextending McCaffrey to save him for a playoff run where he is a game-changing player. I mean, he has that super upside. You can see, though, in the interim, their red zone offense has struggled mightily, and I think he's a big reason why. So you can see both sides of the coin, the urgency to get him back in and also a reason to have patience. In ETN's case, he's going to be the starter. He's going to be the passing down back. Tank Bigsby is going to be a limiting factor for him, just like he's going to be a limiting factor for Tank Bigsby. So, so take that for what it's worth and run with it.
Yep. All right, we're going to move on to Frank Nunez. He wants to know Ertz or Hawk. This is a pretty simple one. I feel like if Hawk is playing, you've got to play him. Herms?
Dude, I literally have this exact problem in my home league. So, not to deflect the question, but I would love to hear all perspectives that aren't mine because Frank, I have the same concern. I have the exact same concern.
All right, Bob, what do you think?
I would probably take my chance on the upside. Like Ertz has been perfectly fine. Maybe you look at where you're at, what your record is going to be a factor. If you need a swing for the fence play, TJ Hawkinson is that. If we're to believe Kevin O'Connell, he looks every bit as good as he did the last time we saw him, and that was pretty good. Also, is he just going to show up in the first game and have a big game? Well, last time he just showed up in Minnesota. That's exactly what he did. He just came out and lit the world on fire. So I think this is one where you look carefully. Look. There might be a world where you just say, well, damn, I just need to avoid a 0. Well, Zach Ertz is perfectly capable of helping you avoid a 0. And again, double-digit points in each of the last 3 games in a matchup that isn't super daunting. I think there's an argument for playing it safe, but also he is the safe play. If you really want to be aggressive and swing for the fence, I think Hawkins is the guy. He's going to shift the way they run that offense in Minnesota. They've been focused entirely on the run and the deep ball. And that's demonstrated. Sam Darnold is holding the ball for a league high 3.1 seconds because he's waiting for Justin Jefferson to get down the field, get open. Being able to shift this up and have a really dangerous intermediate and short range weapon is going to change this offense for the better.
Yeah, I'm with you, Bob. All right, guys. We're going to take one more question, and we've got to get out of here and get on with our Fridays here. Big Back Brad, Bob, wants to know, which 2 do you start? He needs 1 wide receiver and 1 flex. Chris Olave against Carolina, Kareem Hunt against Tampa Bay, DJ Moore against Arizona, Jalen Waddle against Buffalo, or Tyrone Tracy against Washington?
Tyrone Tracy is one of them. Chris Olave might be the other. I love DJ Moore. I think it's going to be Olave for me.
It's Herms. Who's it for you?
I've got DJ Moore and Olave kind of in the same general tier range, but Moore is at the top of it, whereas Olave is closer to the bottom. So that would probably be the direction that I would lean.
All right.
I've got Olave in my top 10.
Ooh.
At number 10.
I mean, Derek Carr's back. So
it's Carolina.
It's Carolina. Yeah, I mean, matchup. Yeah. Bob, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank everyone else who tuned in. I also want to thank Herms for riding with me a second day this week. Want to remind everyone, me, Mike Reedy, and Casey Kasem will be on Reddit this Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern up until kickoff, answering all your fun start-sit questions, trade questions, roster questions. So pop on over r/fantasy football. I'll be back on Tuesday for the Waiver Wire show with Mike Reedy at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So pop in over for that. Again, Bob, Herms, guys, thank you so much for coming on with me. For Herms and Bob, I am Nate Polvogt. Happy Friday and good luck in Week 9, whether it's DFS, Best Ball, Fantasy Football, Dynasty, your bets. Go out there and win, guys.